Hi everybody, welcome. My name is Kat Thomas and today I've got a wonderful treat, not just for you, but for me as well. Before we have Mr., or I should say a Dr. Humberto Jardim actually join us. Hi there. I just want to show you what we've got in store today. Not only are we going to get a beautiful 101 crash course on all that is Madeira, I had the pleasure of tasting two of these wines from Henriques and Henriques just recently, like just a few hours ago. The '07 Verdelho and a 20-year Terrantez, right? Terrantez. For all of you nerds out there, you know just how special, how unique, and how beautiful and fabulous Terrantez can be. And we're just waiting for the good doctor to join us. I really appreciate you all taking a moment in your day to find the time and be a part of this wonderful, wacky world that we call wine. So, I appreciate you all taking a moment. I see a lot of good humans here today. Thank you for joining. We're just waiting for our lovely doctor. So while we are, I'm just going to give a little bit of insight. Oh, there we go. A little bit of insight on what Madeira is really about, and just talk to you a little bit about Henriques and Henriques. So Henriques and Henriques is one of the oldest Madeira producers, right? So there's only 8 producers really left on that beautiful little island, a safe haven, we'll call it. And today we're going to stop in a small little coastal village of Camaro de Lobos. So if you're not familiar with the island, I'm going to let the good doctor kind of really get into that with you. But this is a tiny little area, and they are considered to be one of the founders of Madeira wine. So supposedly, and we'll find out if this is just a rumor or if it's true, they are supposedly one of the first to actually bring grapes to this island. So I'm really excited to have the doctor join us. I thank you all for being present today, and we'll just make sure that we have him joining us soon. Again, thank you to the good people at Henriques and Henriques and Vinos Madeira for joining us today, as well as Sotolon Selections. And I'm going to see if I can get the good doctor here. We'll get him next. Let's see if he's ready to go with us. So anybody out there have Madeira in their world? If you're just joining right now, you can see behind me, I've already started dipping in, but we're trying the 2007 Verdelho and a 20-year Terrantez from Henriques and Henriques. What a treat that is. I mean, Terrantez. So how is everyone doing today? I see a lot of friendly faces out there. Thanks for joining us today. So I'll probably repeat a few of these things as we wait for Humberto to join us. But if we look at the size of Madeira, and most of us are coming here from a region that's very familiar with the wine regions of the United States, Madeira is actually smaller than Napa Valley. Yes, all of Napa Valley is like 2.5 times larger than all of Madeira. So that's pretty awesome. I don't see that Max is able to join us, so we're going to see how we can get him on here. Let's see. Max. The goodness of Portugal and the United States trying to connect. All right, so Madeira is one of 4 small islands. It's an archipelago, or I like to call it a beautiful haven or oasis. 47%, and that's my favorite number, but 47% of that entire island landmass is either forest or mountain. So that's not usually what we think of when we consider something for planting grapes, but there are over 2,000 grape growers on the island, and those 2,000 grape growers provide the grapes for these producers, and there's only 8 Madeira producers left. So one of them is Henriques and Henriques, and hopefully we can get our good friend Humberto Jardim of Henriques and Henriques to give us that Madeira 101 crash course in just a moment. I thank you all for the patience. We'll see if he can. And he is still not able to join. So let's see how we can do this. I might have to log off. Julie, maybe you have a way. I see that you just logged on. Max is not able to join us at the moment. He's not able to log in for some reason. Maybe you'll have a moment that you can share with him, or maybe I just restart this interview. So maybe you want to comment for us all. Thank you, Julie Peterson, for setting this up. I don't want to have too many of our people waiting. Thank you, Julie. So a little cool thing, since we are tasting that Terrantez. So Terrantez was supposedly George Washington's favorite grape. I have no idea. I don't know how to check it because he is obviously not still alive, but that's what I was reading, that George Washington loved the Terrantez style of Madeira. But what happened in the times is that we had phylloxera and odium, and for all of you non-wine nerds out there, I bet there's not too many of you out there that are watching, those were diseases that affected the grapevines, and they decimated a lot of the island. So they brought in different workhorse varieties, and those are now considered our noble grapes. What's going on, Kenny? Thanks for joining. Those are considered now some of the more noble grapes. And actually, the big workhorse today, it's between 85 and 90. All right. Are we still live here? Because I just got a call from the good doctor, and he's going to try and join us now. I apologize to everybody. This is fun. We'll see if he's joining us in just a moment. Kenny Dayton, you want to get in my Instagram? We're going to wait for the good doctor. He should be joining us in just a moment, he said. Let's see. We'll try and give him another request. I got to give people the patience and the energy to learn how to do all this. We'll see if he can get it. He just called me, so I know he's capable of getting on the horn here. There he is. Woohoo! We did it. US and Portugal.
Yeah.
Saúde. All right. So I was trying to give my own mini crash course to all these great people. I know that you are going to do a much better job, but I just want to do a reintroduction since I've been rambling and talking for a few minutes. Thank you for joining us today. We are with the legendary Henriques and Henriques, and we've got the good Dr. Humberto Jardim with us today. He's CEO, passionate, and awesome human being that likes to share his wealth of knowledge and passion that he has. And behind me, I was so excited to try a 20-year Terrantez this morning. I sure drank it already this morning. It's only 9 a.m. here in Las Vegas. And I have the 2007 Verdelho. So in addition to trying these and hearing, I know you have a mnemonic for how to remember different styles of Madeira. We're going to talk a little bit about what makes Madeira so amazing. and then the different styles and production methods of Madeira. So without further ado, please everybody welcome Dr. Humberto Jardim of Henriques and Henriques.
Hi to everybody.
How are you feeling tonight?
Very good, very good.
Good, good, good. So I was beginning to tell everybody that there's a rumor floating around in the wine nerd world that Yao, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, Yao, Joaquim Henrique, was the first. Joao, thank you.
João Joaquim Henriques.
See, you sound so much prettier when you say that. So he was the first person to actually bring grapes to the island of Madeira.
No, I wouldn't say that. He is obviously this family is established in Cameroon long, long time ago. But I believe that bringing grapes to Madeira was a need to celebrate the Mass, because as you know, the first thing which happened here after the Portuguese arrived to Madeira was the build of a church, and they needed the wine to celebrate the Mass. So it was in two ways. I would say that it was a natural process bringing grapes to the island, even to establish the people on the island. It was a culture which immediately would bring some revenue to the island, and obviously the first thing was the connection in between the celebration of the Mass.
Wonderful. Well, definitely an Henrique family member had a part in the celebration and bringing that
I believe
culture.
so, yes. I believe so. They were
Beautiful.
inheritors of lots of lands, especially located here in Câmara de Lobos and the Estreito. They had lots of tenants, and mainly their first activity was to produce grapes to sell to the British exporters, which were long established on the island and were the connection from the island to the outer world. You can imagine Madeira in the 1600s, 1700s was a small place left behind from the Portuguese crown. And in fact, Madeira had to find a way. And I have to say that the influence of the British Empire was very important for Madeira.
And I was mentioning how small the actual area, the full area is. I was comparing it to the size of Napa Valley, where Napa Valley, just Napa Valley, is almost 2.5 times bigger than all of Madeira. And I mean, there's such great things coming from that area. And it's just such an amazing contrast when you think of the size differences.
Yeah, in fact, Madeira is a very small island. We have in kilometers, I would say, we have 56 kilometers from east to west and 25 north-south. So this means that we have around 740 square hectares, which is a very small area. And Madeira has 470 hectares around that planted with vines, because half of the island is the laurel forest, which is a patrimony of the UNESCO. So the agriculture here is very difficult, because this is all in slopes and terraces. It's intense hand picking, hand treating, it intense manpower to take care of any of the cultures that we have here on the island.
Yes, and there's about 2,000 grape growers for just 8 producers, correct?
We had that number. They diminished. There's a lot of, I would say, some concentration. We are now officially inscribed to 1,250 wine growers.
Okay, so it's
imagine the population is getting old. Some of the guys, they are selling the properties and keeping on with the authorization to keep on going with the production, which is very difficult to obtain nowadays. But around 1.2. Not long ago, they were 2,000.
Okay. Now, before we get into the different production methods of Madeira, because I think it's important, people may know of Madeira, they may have tasted Madeira, they may enjoy it or be confused by it. I think that's a big thing. I think it's really important to understand just exactly what Madeira, the process is, and the fact that you can have Madeira around for a very, very long time. But before we get into that, can we talk about why Madeira is so unique, not only to you, but to the region as far as grape growing?
Well, unique because it's on an island lost in the middle of the Atlantic and has special characteristics. We are a mountain wine and we are a volcanic wine. Volcanic because Madeira is the outcome of a volcano. And our soils, they show a lot of acidity and a lot of ashes and metal compounds, which are also important for the wine later on, especially. And Madeira, being the way it is, under this climate conditions with low level of photosynthesis, has a small potential alcohol. Let's say that the average potential alcohol is 9.5, which brings out a high level of acidity. And this acidity also prevents the oxidation process not to be on the chemical side. I would say not on the jeopardizing side of the wine. It evolves silently and slowly to a level of transformation of the phenolic compounds to the tasty notes that we are used to Madeira. And also, it's very important to find that Madeira talks about grapes, not about style. We talk about Malvasia, Boal, Verdelho, Tinta Negra, Terrantez. And those different grapes, they show different outcomes in terms of flavors because they adapt to different heights. We usually started to plant Malvasia earlier, and we noticed that Malvasia above 200 meters would be very difficult to grow and even impossible in certain ways. And we started to produce Boal, which resists up to 400 meters. Then Verdelho, and up to the mountain, we have Cercial at 1,000 meters high. This is why they show different. We have different climates and all of these heights, and also the sunshine is different there because being a small island, we don't have the heating mass of air to push upwards the clouds. If you would ask for a delta wing flyer to come to Madeira, he would never fly above 1,000, 1,200 meters high because this is the highest he can in terms of flying below the clouds. And that makes a huge difference because obviously nearby the sea, you have much more sunshine and much more sunshine exhibition. So much more photosynthesis, much more potential sugar, and the grapes show differently. The acidity will be formed in a different way, whether it comes from the high mountains, whether it comes from nearby the sea. And these characteristics allow Madeira to go through a process of oxidation, which is unique. You look into other regions and they prevent at the early stages the oxidative process. But when you talk about Madeira, Madeira wants oxygen. We usually look at oxygen as a friend, and most of the winemakers would look at oxygen with care for. They want a little bit of oxygen, but not that much. And we want oxygen, we want temperature, we want all of what we enslave this wine to the nature of what it will be in some years. It's like the wine submits to all of the different stages of aging, depending obviously of the warehouses. Because if you look at a wine which has 20 years of age, aging in a barrel, it is very important where this barrel is staying. If it is in a warehouse, high in the mountain with lower temperature, with a lot more of humidity, the losses are different from a warehouse which is nearby the sea, with much more temperature, with an average temperature during the day and during the 4 seasons of the year, which is much more stable. So the losses in terms of water and alcohol on the evaporation process will bring out a much more balanced wine in terms of concentration when you look into these conditions.
Wonderful. So is everybody just like, isn't that awesome? See, I told you it was a crash course. Maybe I should have said 301 and not 101, but very grateful. So let's talk about the different grapes then, because I loved reading something where you had a mnemonic. And again, I think, with fortified wines and such, there's always a level of understanding and then having no clue what that actually means. And I think when it comes to Madeira, as you were mentioning, the grapes are the biggest influence on the outcome of the flavor profile of the wine, whether it's an aged or non-vintage. So let's hear your mnemonics on how people should look at the different productions of Madeira.
Well, in first place, as you have seen already, when we are talking about Tinta Negra, we vinify it from sweet, medium dry, and dry. And this is an outcome of a reality which was first started with Malvasia being vinified as a sweet wine, and we don't have Malvasia on the dry end. We have it ruled by the Institute of Madeira Wine that Malvasia should be sweet, Boal should be medium sweet, Verdelho medium dry, and Cercial dry. So this kind of mimicking the plasticity that Tinta Negra has shows the importance of the different styles which were first shown into the market. This is why nowadays producing 15% of what we do in Madeira, coming out from the white grapes, Malvasia Boals, Sommelier Kat and Verdelho. We try to bring into productive grape, which is Tinta Negra, this importance. So classifying Madeira under the pattern of the residual sugar is a little bit poor, because then we get back to the definition. Why do you write on the label Malvasia, Boal, Verdelho, and Cercial, and you don't talk of the different phenolic compounds of these grapes and how they manifest themselves on the land and under the different climate conditions that they are submitted to? And if you look into this, you will see that if you process these grapes on your brain, you will see that it's like a classic music orchestra. You will have the violins on the left side, and there you will process kind of Cercial. It's more on the dry end, on the zesty flavors. Let's say that if you would define a color, it would be on the greenish yellow flavors. Lemon, grapefruit, all of that. Then you move a little bit further to the right, and you will have a kind of viola playing. So it's the notes got a little bit deeper. You have more residual sugar. You are on the 70 grams of residual sugar. You have more on the orangine flavors, the marmalade, all of that you will find on the Verdelho. They are moving your brain into something that you can have at ease with a nice cigar, with some dry cheese, something which is pleasing you, but not that early waking up wine which is punching you and sort of saying that the Cercial would do. Then you move to the caramellish flavors, which will probably be the easiest wine to talk about, which is Boal. Everyone who doesn't know anything about Madeira should start with the Boal, because Boal shows these caramellish flavors that we have since we were little children. We have got the caramel even to be quiet somehow. Our mother was telling you, you have a caramel, and we would be quiet. So these flavors are very easy for us to identify in first place. And this is what comes out from Boal. And
I
again,
never
you
got
go
the
further.
caramel. I never got a caramel. I think that was the problem. So I was never
You did
caramel.
not.
Never. No, that was the problem.
I give it now. Whenever you have the opportunity, I will have you tasting a nice Boal with those flavors. Obviously, the minerality is very important in all of these, how these plants, they are autotrophic, so they are fabricating their own food, and they are maneuvering with the weather, the water, and the minerals, and they are showing their different characteristics on their DNA in different spectrum of the flavors. And again, when you go into the Malvasia, which is the most driven into the definition of what Madeira is about, is the sugarcane honey, the first thing, the dark chocolate, the cocoa, the strong cocoa. We have a cake here, which is Bolo de Mel. If you pair Malvasia with Bolo de Mel, you immediately will notice that there is a connection. The way which was being fabricated, the honey cake was very much driven into these dry fruits and the dates and flavors which go deeper into, but roasted deeper into this connection with Malvasia. So I would say that you would process Malvasia on your right side, and the cellos will be playing.
I love it. It's a symphony. That's a great way to look at it. Me, I look at Cercial is my breakfast wine. I wake up. It's like my gin and tonic, but now I drink Cercial to wake up. and then your bedtime will be your Malvasia. But I like the
Obviously.
symphony idea. I like the color spectrum, and I think that helps people really gauge a better understanding, not only for food and wine pairings, but when they're offering things to their guests. If they don't have an
Absolutely.
understanding themselves, it's hard for them to share that.
It's the
Now we
reference.
yes, yes, very much. And it bring, like you said, the caramel idea. If we can find a memory to lock into that little palace in our brain, it's easier for us to then educate and share that joy
Yeah,
and passion with someone else. Um,
absolutely.
Now, we didn't talk about this little gem, and you say it's so pretty. Can you say the Tarantesh? Tarantesh? Is that how
Terrantez,
you say it?
Terrantez.
It sounds so
You are
pretty.
probably used to say the Torrontés, which is the Argentinian and the Spanish. It's not the same. It's not the same as Terrantez. But anyway, Terrantez is a very nice grape that we have here. Difficult, obviously. I would say difficult because you obviously have to understand two parts of this. There's a romance from our side to produce dated wines, special wines from these and those grapes. But there is the other romance of the wine grower. He wants to know how many kilos he will have at the end of the season, because that means for him reward. It's money in the pocket. And the Tinta Negra is the one. It can reach to 15 tons per hectare. And Terrantez, it's very difficult to go above 2 tons per hectare. So you see the difference in terms of rewarding the wine grower, and why Terrantez is not so much preferred in terms of the choice of the wine growers. Also, it takes much more of the attention to take care of this grape because it's very sensitive. Since the rootstock, you have to choose which kind of rootstock you will have in different kind of soils, because some of the rootstock will be more on the riparia, which goes deep into the soil, and there is it's a basalt. So if you go too deep, you will knock against a rock. You need a rootstock which will expand, which will search for the water and nutrition as much as possible. So this is one of the things which starts to become difficult to plant Terrantez. And Terrantez being so sensitive with small bunch, very tight, the skin is very thin, it ripens. Well, we have our 1.3 hectare, which produces this year produced more than 13 tons. But we really have to be very careful with that. In August, we are already vinifying these grapes.
Wow.
It's
Wow. So it's
the
basically
wine
a
which
cute
I
little.
would say that the Tarantese is the silky veil of the Madeiras, because you are looking for tropical fruits, Mediterranean fruits, and it's just a little scent that you will have. It's a perfume of the white almonds. It's more floral. You have the yellow flowers, the arrow petals, and the pollen in the air, much more driven into this wine. This is a sensitive, very high personality. It imposes itself, but it doesn't show itself as a blunt wine. It has an incredible elegance.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's sensual. I love the silky veil. That's a beautiful way to look at it. And I hope everyone out there is a little jealous of me, because I'm jealous of me that I can't sit home and drink this all day. But I'm gonna let this linger and savor in my cupboard for quite a while. Um, I wanted to ask about tornaviagem. So this may be just some nerdy phrase that I, of course, read about and had to study and memorize the key thing. And I'm just wondering why this isn't something that's maybe making a comeback as a Renaissance style. Since there's so many ships that are still traveling around, why not put a mark on the Tornaviagem of Madeira again? I know it was a pain in the ass before, but now that the ships are going.
Yeah, I know. But that is something which obviously came out from the real history. Madeira was being included as ballast of the caravels, and after coming back, when we were analyzing this wine, we were surprised because the wine had crossed the tropics, came back. It was not traded totally. with the traders wherever this caravel had been. And we started to understand that probably would be the heat which was provoking this kind of wellness to the wine. And this is why we have recreated the Estufa houses in the early 1700s, even with mistakes in those days until it evolved to nowadays. The recreation of the hot house nowadays is technically very, very much evolved. When you ask me to recreate Torna Viagem is a nightmare. Imagine that you would have a boat and someone would ask you, can you put a pipe into my boat? They would say, wow, this is too much weight. If you would make it with two small barrels of 225, it would have to be one on each side because the big vessels wouldn't be interesting for us. It has to be a vessel which will really cross slowly the tropics in order to provoke this kind. And remember that in those days when the wind was not there, the tropics, the caravels were stopped in the tropics and waiting until the wind would come back and for them to go through. Nowadays, it's completely different. If the wind is not there, they will switch on the engine. So I suspect that the outcome on the wine would not be the same.
Thank you
That
for
would be a good
indulging.
experience.
Thank you for indulging me in that. We had a question from Domenico, and he was wondering, what are the biggest challenges that Henriques and Henriques, or maybe everybody in Madeira, maybe it's different in different little sub areas, but the biggest challenges that you run into for the grapes?
Well, the biggest challenges now is to professionalize the future wine growers, because the average age of our wine growers is becoming quite high. You know, we have a lot of first generation, second generation still working on the wine. But let's say that the sons, which became doctors, engineers, working in banks, insurance companies, they are struggling to get back to the land. So the public investment in terms of construction gives a good alternative in terms of income. So the youngsters, which don't go to study, they get into the construction and they don't go to the land. But getting into the land needs professionalism, because we have invested a lot of money in facilities, technical elements to provide everything we needed in terms of certification of quality, to be in the big surfaces and to ensure that what we are putting on the shelf has been controlled since it started to be a seed up to the moment that it became a wine into a bottle. So now we need to ensure that someone which is taking care of the land has that conscience. It takes some time, but it is already on in the mind of all of the producers, of the 8 producers. We are all concerned that we really need to help these people to overcome and to bring a new generation which will be looked as people who have knowledge, who have to be respected from what they are doing, because they are the ones ensuring, they are the lung of our business. Without that, there's no point for us to stay here. You know, it's impossible to age wines without having grapes.
This seems to be a reoccurring theme that I hear from some of the wines of the old world and smaller wine regions, that the younger generation thinks that the grass is always greener somewhere else. And it's hard for the families that have been doing wine where they are for centuries to maintain.
Yeah.
So I hope that that does shift, because, you know, I know for a lot of kids here in the United States, they go and work for free for months at a time because they're so eager to learn about that. So maybe I can send a few people to Madeira and they can work for free, which would be good, right?
As you imagine, the discontinuity of our territory also prevents us to have that advantage, because we can't arrive into Madeira without flying or coming on a boat. And that is one of the difficulties. We really have to bring people into our business which are from Madeira.
Right, right. Protect the culture and such. And the culture is beautiful. So you've got UNESCO sites, and it used to be that it would take a day or two to cross the area, the main island, right? A little longer.
If you walk, you have to walk. It's more than one day. You're talking about an area which is almost half of the area of the island, the forest of Laurisilva, and it's only by foot. You can only go there by foot, no way. And it's mountain, and it's difficult into the levadas, walk. You have to be prepared with nice boots, with sticks, with everything. And temperature can start very nice in Funchal, and whenever you arrive there, you will have temperature which will go down to 10 or even 5.
The
It is,
fun in
it's great
Funchal. I love it.
in
There's a lot of
Funchal.
people commenting. I don't know if you can see that are saying, please take me, take me. I'll be there for you. So you've got a lot of people here. So real quick, can we touch again upon the Astufagem and Cantero, and then we can move on to kind of the fun stuff, like talking about your specific wines and things that you find pair best with these.
Okay. So the estufa is for us a process of increasing the transformation of the phenolic compounds to the perception of what people expect from Madeira. You need that for at 45 degrees Celsius during 3 months. And this is, well, we do remontage even on that in order to increase the contact with the oxygen. But the idea is exactly to bring that slight touch of the caramelish burning sugar that you will have on the fructoses. This is what you want. You don't want this notes of, the dark sugar that you get. It's not what you want. You want to still identify the flavors of the fruit in these wines. This is why you have to provoke the estufa process in a smooth way. On the other hand, you have the Cantero. Cantero, it depends where it is. If you have a warehouse, which is in a good height with nice temperature, balance in terms of humidity, you will have an involvement of the wines in a steady way, let's say in a balanced way. Other than that, if you have a lot of humidity, you will lose more water. The wines will show a little bit more crispy, which is also a preference of a lot of people. On the other hand, if it's too dry, you will have losses of alcohol and the wines will become a little bit liquorish. So the balance is very important. It's how you are accompanying. The Cantero is a difficult process because you don't control what nature is bringing you, the temperature of each day, how each year will be. So in that respect, it is very important how you take your wines by hand, because at the end you will have to blend even 4 or 5 different casks that you have from the same year. They will show different. The casks are different. The interactions and the molecules exchange in between the wine, the year, and the barrels will show a wine completely different. So this is where the art of blending starts.
Is there a grape that prefers one style or the other better, or it doesn't matter at that point?
Well, I would say that Terrantez is the grape which is the most difficult one to age. Has a high level of acidity, lower level of residual sugar, so it struggles. It struggles very much. It has struggled on nature, on the high mountain, against the weather, so it's used to struggle against whatever you are submitting the wine to. I would say that Malvasia is the one which is going easier, because in a great part of these Malvasia you have stopped the fermentation, so you have a lot of fructoses. And that fructose is exactly what will bring this idea of the sweetness on the wine. And if you take it properly, you will balance in a freshly way in between the conjunction of the sugar, the residual sugar, the acidity, and the marriage of the alcohol. Let's say the bridges of hydrogen will be very well connected and the wine will be unique, unus. The wine is very unstable. It's a very unstable being. It's always willing to go away, because if you increase the temperature, immediately the alcohol goes away. You start distilling it slowly. So it's I'm connected while I have certain conditions. But other than that, it's always struggling to get apart. If you are mixing coffee and milk, there's no way for you to get back milk and coffee. It's a proteic reaction. But when you are mixing alcohol, water, and dry matter with phenolic compounds, which at the end are the wine. You can extract them. You can distill and take the alcohol. You can keep distilling and take the water, and then you have a dry matter. So you separate the compounds and the sort of thing that it's showing the instability that this wine is always willing to go somewhere and to keep it there. It's how you look after these wines, if you know what I mean. It's when you are in the warehouse, you are feeling the scent of the warehouse. If one of the barrels is leaking, I know where this barrel is, because it's the kind of connection that you have with your house.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Now, as far as Henriques and Henriques, you guys have a very powerful style of Madeira. Would you say and agree with that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would. Has to do,
And
well, somehow it's well, each of us, we are imposing our signature on the wines. It's how
mhm.
you are from inside. It's how you will feel the wines and how you will blend. So let's say that it's very important how you transmit the culture of the company. I usually say that I've been taking care of wines which were given to me 26 years ago, and it's a big responsibility to pass them on to another generation which will understand what has been done from the previous people before me, and now with the team that we have here, what we have been doing, and the looking after of the culture and the style of H&H. This is what we try to do. We don't invent, because there's nothing to invent after founding this company in 1850. I think that early in those days, we already have started to produce what we wanted to do nowadays. So there's no point. We have to put it in a professional way, but not inventing.
Yes. So it's almost like a house style of champagne. You want everybody to know what Henriques and Henriques is, no matter what grape it is.
Yeah,
It's going to show the
yeah, the
connectivity
style.
of Henriques and Henriques inside that bottle.
Absolutely.
Good,
Absolutely.
good. Are there any things that you would like to see in the future for your company? Or do you see it maintaining and being consistent? Are there any practices? I mean, it's pretty sustainable already, naturally organic, and everything in Madeira as it is. So we don't really need to discuss that too much. But are there things that you want to see for Henriques and Henriques?
Well, at least that the renovation of generations will understand. As I said before, it's very important that in some years people will say that what we have been doing now was done properly, and people are proud of what they are having. So they will exercise their skills in the future based on the continuity of what they find is correct. There's no point for us to collide with the previous generation, because they did their most of what they could under the circumstances that they had. And if you look back into history, you will understand them. And to provoke kind of transmission into the future generations in the same alignment of what has been successful to our understanding in the market. This is not easy, I have to tell you, because most of the new generations, they are coming into easygoing way, a little bit on the iPod, easy touching, but this is not like that. This
Definitely.
is going slowly, and people have to understand that it takes years, and we don't do much after 30 years. We use maybe two, three vintages under our signature after 30 years of excising our work.
All right. So let's get down to the wines then. We've got the 2007 Verdelho and my 20-year, my new favorite. I'm going to compare myself then to Terrantez because I'm a challenging little human, but hopefully I work out in the end usually. So let's start with the 2007 Verdelho. If you had your favorite dish, what would it be to pair this with?
Well, I think that this wine works well with consommes, with the smoked fish, salmon, some cheese, some especially the dried cheese. well, if you get into the dry fruits, the roasted nuts, this is a wine which pairs well. It has this nice acidity and provoked into different ways. Let's say that during the flower season, the fact that we have eucalyptus surrounding our vineyard, there is a little influence of that. If you scent the wine and you taste the wine, there's a mixture, but usually you are very much approaching Verdelho under the orange confit, the skin, the peel, which is very much the definition in first place. And then you get on the peach, you get into some marmalade notes with this bitter at the end. But here, there's something which is provoking me. And this is when we started to have this 2007 at this level, crossing into some spiciness. It brought me to this idea that I should launch the Colheita to a younger generation, which is, let's say, not too young generation, because this is already a wine which has evolved. You have to understand a little bit what Madeira is about for you to have this complexity. But it's not that old wine, which is really challenge you on the spicy side, which you don't taste spices. So you have references on the nose, and suddenly someone is putting you something which has already crossed that period of changing the phenolic compounds through the oxidative process into the spiciness, which is a different kind of oxidation, much more complex than the first 40 years of aging of this one. And this one is, and that is challenging. This is why I like it so much. It's coming in first of all from our own vineyard, so we know these grapes from the seed up to the wine where it has been, and it was like looking at it and saying, well, we did it right. You know, it's planted on a hill which goes up from 350 meters up to 700 meters on terraces, and we did it right. The outcome was something which was very much rewarding to our work.
Yes, you did do it right. Thank you. And is it Saud? Is that how do you say it? Saud?
Saud,
Hey, I
Saud.
did something right. I think it is delicious, and it's
Thank you.
the acid is just phenomenal on that. I'm
It's
loving
fresh
it.
acidity. It's not pungent. It's very fresh, integrated. You have the flavors, all of these tropical flavors. If you look into the Brazilian forest, you have all of those parrots and those colors. This is a wine which reminds this environment. So it's very easy. If you chill a little bit, it's even better. You have flavors, complexity of layers of flavor, but then freshly balanced with the acidity. I can't talk about acidity here because we get always, apart from acidity, our body refuses acid. But when you talk about freshness, it's because you have taken care of that touch of acidity into the wines. You still underline the differentiation of each of the grapes, and in this case, the personality of a grape which is coming out from the special vineyard that we have there at Quinta Grande.
Yes, I could listen to you talk about the wines for hours. It's mesmerizing, and you add that colorful imagery that helps people. Hopefully, all of you listening today, if you want to sell this wine to your guests or sell it to yourself, it's helping you build that memory palace and fuel you. So once again, we're going to talk about this little gem. I'm so honored and happy to try this, the 20-year Terrantez from Henriques and Henriques. Now, if you were to pair this, would it just be in the bathtub? Because I like drinking Madeira in the bathtub. Or would you have this with a meal?
That would be, yes. But as you notice, this wine has already the characteristics of the older wines. This was a blend of 5 different vintages or garrafeiras that we had, not in such a quantity that we could invest in producing each single date as a single garrafeira, what we call nowadays, but in the past we could call still vintage. So I decided that it should be better to make some years ago this Terrantez 20 years. And in fact, it brought into it those characteristics on the floral side, but already oxidized, concentrated. So these notes evolved. You can feel at the end you have the spiciness, which is very well marked there. This is something which is picking almost at the end. It's a wine which has a lot of persistence, and the definition of it, it's very much talking to you rather than you talk with the wine. It shows itself in such a way that it's not you who is defining the wine, but it's the wine which goes directly to your references, if you understand what I mean.
Yes. I definitely want to be this grape now. Oh my goodness, I sound amazing if I am. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think we're done here now. So what is there anything else that you would want to share with our guests today? And knowing that this is going to be shared with a few other outlets and such, and recorded and sent out, if there's something else that you'd want to share with our community, what would you share with them about Madeira, about Henriques and Henriques, whatever it is? It
But
could not be
Madeira,
about
I
Madeira.
have to say that the most important that I would like to share is that some smile that we can have now, some hope to the future after this pandemic and the vaccine being already installed there, because there is suffering a lot from the lack of tourism. And you know that our GDP is mostly generated by tourism. So we suffer from the wine sales because we are not selling to the most of the visitors which come here. So if you measure the first customer in terms of region to Madeira is exactly Madeira. But if you think, are the Madeirans drinking so much wine? Not at all. It's in fact the visitors who are buying the wines which we produce and taking it wherever they are going back home. So my message is, as soon as you can, get back to Madeira, and you'll have beautiful surprises from all of us here in Madeira.
Thank you. Everybody, did you
Thank you.
hear that? We're all going to Madeira very soon. I know my Sommation team and I would love to do that. So my last question to you, drum roll. So you've only got 10 minutes. That's it. Just 10 minutes to do this.
Okay.
And not to decide it, but you only have 10 minutes. You have one glass of wine. What is the wine and who are you going to drink it with? Now you don't have 10 minutes to tell me.
You're so tricky. I have my secrets. I cannot tell you, especially publicly. I will not tell my truths about that. But if you,
I told you I drank in the bathtub.
Well, I have some wines here which probably would challenge me to drink. I'd like very much to have a Brundle Boal or and especially these wines from the old times, because they show a lot of history. And our Terrantez 54 is an incredible wine. And I have to say that not long ago, we could still talk about wines from the 1700s. Let's say that 30 years ago, 25 years ago, some of the 1700s were still around. But recently, we are starting to have even difficulty to talk about the wine from the 1800s. Wow. And that is a loss of our silver cutlery, which is somehow the way that people understand Madeira. So we also have to focus our drive into the future to manifest ourselves through the younger wines, and people have to look at it and say, wow, these guys, they pay attention to this in such a way, which is even surprising, because we have so many assets in terms of our differentiation. When you talk about Madeira amongst the other fortified wines, we really have a flexibility, which is not easy to find in most of the wines. So the first question is probably Terrantez 1954 or W.S. Boal, but well, it's a loss because it's a very expensive bottle. But if it would be the last one, okay, I don't care. To drink with, maybe I would share it with you.
Woo! The best day has begun. Well, I'm honored, and I would love to do that with you. I want to
I
just,
said maybe because you would have to accept, obviously.
I accept. I'm there.
Okay, then.
Once we can do this, I'm there. I'd be happy to drink any Madeira with you. Humberto, you've been more than patient and gracious with me and with us all. I'm honored, and this was educational, not only for our guests, but for me. You put a lot of great things into perspective. My memory palace now is full of great images and a symphony of how to express Madeira to others. I can't wait to actually go back and re-listen to some of this. Thank you to everybody out there that joined us for this live session. I want to thank Sotolon Selections too for bringing these great libations into my world. Julie Peterson, thank you for setting this up. And to Venus Madeira, I think this is wonderful. And I hope that we all get a chance. Kenny, thank you for dropping these wines off to me. Kenny's in Las Vegas. And I am already feeling goofy more than normal and buzzed. And it's not even 10 a.m. here in Las Vegas. So congratulations, Humberto. You've done well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for having attended to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we get to see you in Madeira one day. I'll talk to you soon.
Hope so. My pleasure. Bye-bye.